The church say amen. Amen. Say it again. Amen. 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 Again, we bless our choir today. They have really inspired us, and we thank God for our musical staff in the person of Reverend Dr. Glenn Nixon and Brother McPhee, two gifted musicians, and best drummer this side of heaven in the person of Reverend Dr. Alan Green. I'm a prophet. Continuing our study in the book of Revelation, found in chapters 2 and 3. Today we'll be looking at chapter 2, verse 8. Chapter 2 and verse 8. We're going to be reading about the church at Smyrna. Revelations chapter 2 and verse 8. And unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Fear none of those things which thou hast suffered. Thou shalt suffer, because the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that you may be tried. And you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. A few minutes I want to talk about conquering compromise. Conquering compromise. compromise, in order to conquer compromising, one must know the difference between compromising principles and the principle of compromise. Compromising can be a good thing if you use it in order to bring about good things. Peace, harmony, progress. The principle of compromise is a good thing because it teaches you how to coexist with others, even when you don't agree with them totally. But there's a great difference between the principle of compromise and compromising principles. There are certain principles that should never be compromised. There are certain things that because we call ourselves children of God, we are not allowed to compromise. Being a child of Christ dictates a certain posture. Being a child of Christ dictates limits on what I can and cannot do. Being a child of Christ dictates that I can't go everywhere I want to go.
Right.
I can't do everything I would like to do.
Right.
Because I am a child of God, there are restrictions placed on my life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, it is.
Today we have a fitting example of what proper spiritual compromise is. When we look at the church in Smyrna. Smyrna was a coastal town of great wealth. It's located about 40 miles north of Ephesus. It presently is called Izmir. It's the country of Turkey. Back then, it was a well-known city. The name itself means bitter. And is closely related to the word myrrh. Y'all remember when Jesus received presents from the wise men, gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Yeah.
Myrrh was used for burial. It was something that had to be crushed, and then it created a liquid that would be applied to dead bodies in order to prepare them for burial.
Yes, sir.
This city was an important city. It was of the center of Roman imperial cult, well thought of by the Romans and in good position with the monarchy. But remember, there is a distinction between the city Smyrna and the church at Smyrna. The church at Smyrna, because of its inability to compromise, I should say, unwillingness to compromise, put it in a very bad light with the powers that be. I was kind of hurt when they told me Harry Belafonte went on home.
Yeah.
God let the man live 96 years. Seemed like he still wasn't long enough. Harry Belafonte, close friend and confidant of Dr. King's. I admired him from an early age because here is a man, popular, gifted, rich, and yet he wouldn't compromise certain principles in order to be accepted by society. Listen to him speaking. I did a lot of research on his life, and he was saying he had to turn down some roles, and in fact, there were roles that were denied him because he was so active in the civil rights movement. Said they approached him and said, if you lighten up on your activity, we could give you more work. Harry Belafonte responded, I'd rather be an activist than being an actor.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against the man, but Jerry Springer passed away, and it amazed me how the blues commentators seemingly wanted to give him more time. And started trying to prop up his legacy. But they quoted him one statement. He said, people are hoping I go to heaven, because if I go to heaven, that means everybody can. There are just some things you can't prop up. And there are just some things you ought not try to equate. And you can say whatever you want, but when you live a certain kind of life, your legacy is contaminated. Or it is determined. Let me hurry up, let y'all go home. I want to start out with choosing Christ over Caesar. I said Smyrna was a very great city, well thought of, but it was really prey to this idea of pleasing the monarchy. The church at Smyrna refused to succumb to the pressure of that day, but determined that Caesar was God. And that once a year, if you were going to stay in good relationship with the government and the city, you had to declare that Caesar is Lord. The church of Smyrna refused to declare Caesar as Lord, and consequently, it put them in a bad relationship with the powers that be. One of the powers in Smyrna was the Great Labor Guild. That's what we call labor union. And they were basically in good relationship with the government, kind of like Blake did now, who would compromise certain principles in order to get along, in order to make it. And I think I want to say maybe one of the greatest problems we have today, we got too much compromising the principles. Consequently, there's a lot of corruption here in America. And so once you refuse to compromise and say that Caesar is Lord, or you don't say it, that automatically puts you in a bad relationship with the labor union. That means if you're in bad relationship with the labor unions, that means you don't get a job. And if you don't get a job, that means you are poor. I was telling the group Wednesday night, that word they use for poverty is not just poor, it's what I call poor. When you're so poor you can't afford the OR. That when you translate that word poverty to the Greek, it really means you had nothing. You weren't just poor, you were destitute. That means you had nothing at all. And I think I want to tell you there are some folk who will compromise a whole lot for a dollar. And the question comes to mind that I had to ask my group the other night, I wonder if we were put in the same position with the church at Smyrna, would we really be able to stand like they stood? Would you be willing not to compromise? Would you make excuses for saying Caesar is Lord? Well, I really don't mean it. God knows my heart. But I'm just saying a little bit just to get by. You have that kind of Christianity today, and that kind of Christianity can mess you up. What are you willing to compromise? What are you willing to do not to lose your job? What are you willing to do to get a job? Will you work for anybody for any amount? It's like a man went up to a woman and said, if you go to bed with me, I'll give you $1 million. And she said, yeah. They began to prepare. And he said, you got to pay me first. He took out a $20 bill and put it on there. Here you go. She said, but you think I'm a hoe? We've already established that. We're just trying to negotiate a price. And y'all missed it. You'll get it on the way home. If you compromise for $1 million, you're just as guilty as if you compromise for $2 million. I know y'all don't like it. It's tight, but it's right. Somebody stole my statement. That a lot of times we mess up certain principles, but the principle is still the same. Well, not only did they have a problem of getting along with the labor union, they had a problem with the local Jews. The Jews had a problem with the Christians, basically because of that fellow they call Christ. Jewish Orthodox Jews don't really believe Jesus is the Messiah. You can call him a good man, but you just can't call him the Christ. I wish I had a witness here. Yeah. I remember thinking, come on with it. And you know, I got a problem with these people. Everybody, they want to bless Israel and they want to bless you. You need to be careful who you blessing with God's money. Because anybody who don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God is an antichrist. And anybody who supports an antichrist is an antichrist. You can't give your money to support Jesus' enemy and then turn around and say he's your Lord.
Yeah.
You can't go around blessing Jesus' enemy and then turn around and say that you are a follower of the King. Oh, I wish I had some. That if I can't support him, I certainly have to be against them. Do I have a witness here? To the group the other night, there were other Jews. You look at Acts and you see a strong representation of how many Jews were fighting against Paul's ministry. They were supposedly Jewish Christians, but what they would do is they could not handle people joining the church unless they brought with them all of the requirements of the Mosaic law. They didn't want you to be a Christian unless you still believe in being circumcised. They didn't want you to be a Christian unless you still believe in all of the Mosaic law. You can't eat no pork chops. I wish I had a witness here. But Jackson, I think I ought to tell you, we got some of them kind of Jews around here today. They don't call themselves Jews, but they always want to add on to the requirements of Jesus Christ. I don't see anywhere in Scripture in order to be saved, you got to stop eating pork. I don't see anywhere in Scripture in order to be saved that you've got to just be kosher. That basically the Bible says if you have faith. And what the Lord has done through Jesus Christ, you can be saved. can't really try to make people something they are not, and you can't make God something He's not. If you believe in God, you ought to believe in God's plan. Do I have a witness here? If you believe in God, you ought to believe that He's doing the right thing. So consequently, Jesus said they are not really Jews, and their synagogue is not a synagogue of the Jews. It's really a synagogue of Satan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's Satan that is against the church.
Yes.
You around there hating on folk and cross your eyes at people, rolling your eyes at folk. But you ought to recognize that it's not really people you ought to be mad at. You should be upset with the devil that's got a hold of you. I want to tell you that you got to be careful blaming folk. Paul said in that letter, he said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness. Come on here, somebody, in high places. I can understand it's the devil I ought to be fighting. I shouldn't be fighting folk. You fighting folk who got a cold, and their problem is they got a virus. You need to get rid of the virus. Come on here, somebody. Don't get rid of the person. That if I can heal the virus, I can help the person. If you can get the devil out of them, you can have somebody God can use. Get the hell out of them, you have some heavenly possibilities. I have to understand that God is still in control. Do I have a witness here? So that just like the church in Smyrna, we need to decide whose side we're on. Are you going to choose Christ or are you going to choose Caesar? I could have just had the whole sermon right there, because you see, we live in a time now when people claim to be children of God, but they're really not representing God. It's hard to see God in these Republicans who's upholding, I like the idea they're against abortion, but the same Republicans won't see about people who are alive under those bridges. The same Republicans promoting programs that pulling people down, that hurting hungry people, that's giving to the rich and taking from the poor. I got a problem with you claiming you're a child of God. I'm listening to the view. I'll be slipping through there, and I try to clip the channel, but every now and then, but I got to stop and listen. And they got a lady, she got a real problem with church people. And I don't understand how you gonna claim you all that and you're against church folk, but she keeps bringing up the same problem. It's like, how you gonna be church people and you always against people? All right. Then I realized she was really talking about Southern Baptist people, that folk who claim they love the Lord, they don't want to kill the baby, but they got a problem with homosexuals and they want to kill them. They love the Lord, but they got a problem with black folk and Latinos and other folk, and so they make policies to kind of slap them upside the head and act like they love everybody. That they say one thing with their mouth, but they do a different thing with their actions. It's like those people when they call those two brothers out of Tennessee and gonna kick them out because they were protesting. One minute America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, and freedom of speech on one hand, but then you turn around and want to have an attitude with somebody who expresses their right to say what's on their mind. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says you got to agree with everybody. You want to talk about a melting pot, but you want everybody in the pot to be the same. That ain't melting. There's something wrong with our philosophy and our action. And so when I listen to definition of church people, Christians, I understand her problem. The problem is she don't make a distinction between them and us. You see, they put all church people in one bag. And I think I'll tell you, you got a lot of folk like that in the church, that you want to think everybody that's bad is just like that. People, nowadays, they brag about, I don't go to church because they ain't right at church. I don't go to church because the church is full of hypocrites. I don't go to church because the people ain't right. Well, number one, if you tell the truth, he ain't lying. People at church aren't right. Everybody in church got something wrong with them. If they were all right, they would need to come to church. You say all the time, the church is a spiritual hospital. You don't go to the hospital if you're well. Come on here. Jesus said it's those who are sick that needs a doctor. All of us need a doctor. But the thing I love about the church is that the church tells the truth about its situation. I'm not perfect. I got something wrong with me, but I'm in the right place. I'm not perfect, but I'm in the right place. I may not be doing everything right, but I'm in the right place. I'm trying to get some help. I'm trying to improve myself. I'm trying to be better. But then I'm in the right place because I've got an advocate. I got a spiritual doctor. I got a bad disease. That sin is a bad disease. But I got a doctor that handled that for me a long time. Oh, I wish I had somebody. A long time ago. He fixed that on Calvary so that my sins are forgiven and I'm a better person. But then that's not all he did. He didn't just save me. He sanctifies me. Help me, Holy Ghost. That means he tries to make me better than I used to be. I'm not perfect, but I'm not what I used to be. I got some areas that need improvement, but I'm not what I used to be. I'm not what I used to be. I'm not what I ought to be, but I'm not what I used to be. And hopefully, if he's still working on me, I'm better today than I was on yesterday. But every day I get a little closer. Every day I get a closer walk with him. Every day I learn a little bit more about him. Every day I try to be just a little bit better. Every day I try to spread a little more of his love, a little more of his kindness. Every day I try to share some more of his peace. Every day I try to make the world a better place. Come on here, somebody. Instead of a worse place. Not only do I see choosing Christ over Caesar in the text, but if I'm going to compromise or conquer, I should say compromise, I need to understand the church crisis and compromise. Yeah, look at verse 10 in this passage. It says a whole lot. Jesus, talking to the church at Smyrna, says, "Fear none of these things." What? Fear none of these? What these things? Well, you got to go up to verse 9. Verse 9 says, "I know your works. I know your tribulation, and I know your poverty. I know that you are poor. I know that they blaspheme your name. I know that synagogue of Satan is always trying to find problems with you. I know that your life is difficult. People don't like you just because of who you claim you are." He says, "Fear none of these things." Well, now, Lord, that's easier said than done. I wish he'd have said, "Don't worry about it, I got it. You ain't got to really experience all this. I'm going to fix it for you." But that's not what he said. He said, "Fear none of these things which thou shalt suffer." Boy, I'm going to preach that about that. Because I'm sick of all you Christian folk who think that you're supposed to have a life of ease and perfection, that nothing is going wrong. I'm tired of these preachers lying to y'all, telling you that if you're good with God, everything's going to go right in your life. Yeah, you might as well don't come here. If you think I'm going to tell you that when you're close to God, everything's going to go your way, and you're going to be blessed, don't have a run, just wake up in the morning and the sun is shining, all is well. If you have a negative problem, just put positive thoughts in your head. Speak positive words, and your life will be all. That ain't what he said here. No. He said, "I know that you will have to suffer." I wish I had a witness here that when you're a child of God and you decide that you're going to go against Caesar, you got to suffer the wrath of Caesar. When you are dealing with the powers that be, people got power, and they will use their power to hurt you and to harm you. Yeah, I wish I had a witness here. He said, "Yeah, I know your difficulty. I know that you are poor. I know that you will be talked about. You will be slandered, and you will have to suffer." Do I have a witness here? I wonder how many of us really know what being a child of God really is. I want to get no amen right there, but I hear I wonder how many folk who you're going to have to go through some difficulty. How many of you really are determined to stand with the Lord and say, "For God I live"? I wish I had a witness here. you're going to almost die. He didn't say you're going to wish you. He said, no, you're going to die. Yeah, you're going to suffer. You're going to be locked up. You're going to be tried. You're going to go through some difficult days. You're going to have some tribulation, and you're going to have some difficulty. Do I have a witness here? That word tribulation, it says a whole lot. That word tribulation deals with the idea that you got to go through some crushing pressure.
Yeah.
You should have to go through some difficulty that will crush you. I already told you that myrrh wasn't really myrrh until you take that myrrh seed and crush it. And when you crush it, the juice that came out is what they used. It was like a fragrance, but it was used as a fragrance to cover dead bodies. Yeah. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Yeah, you're going to have tribulation, he said, but you got to hang on in there. Don't be afraid. Satan is after you. That word Satan, notice he's called Satan in one place and the devil in another. Yeah. He talked about in verse 9, the synagogue of Satan. But he said, behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison. You see that word Satan, if you look at it, transliteration, that word Satan means adversary. The word devil means slanderer. I already told you, the devil is the one that's really your adversary, but he's not satisfied just going against you, but he also wants to slander you. I don't know why y'all surprised when folks lie on you. If they lied on Jesus, they're going to lie on you. I don't know why you're surprised when folks lie on you. The Bible said they lied on the saints back then. What makes you think they're not going to lie on you? I don't know why you're surprised when they lie on you. They lied on our forefathers. They will lie on you. I know it's tight, but it's right there. Some of y'all looking at me funny. I don't know why you shocked because they lie on you. You've been lying on everybody else. What makes you think nobody's going to lie on you? The Bible is not wrong. It's really right. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Some of those lies is just some fruit coming back from some lies you told. You know you've been lying on some folk. You've been pushing gossip that you don't even know what you're pushing. You've been repeating stuff and you wasn't there. You don't have evidence that it happened, but you have no problem with spreading that mess. How you know he was in the hotel with somebody else? Were you there? How you know she was having extramarital affairs? Were you there? How you know what wrong people are doing? There's only one way to be certain. You have to be
there.
Oh, help me, Holy Ghost. And if you were there, that means you're just as guilty as they are. How you going to be in a hotel with the wrong people and not be wrong yourself? Yeah. I could tell you a story, but I got to move on. I see this adversary and this slanderer that he calls his folk to want to suffer. And then Jesus says, fear not. Well, Lord, what you trying to tell me? He sees the consequences of not compromising. When you compromise, you got to consider there are certain consequences that follows your compromising. Would you compromise your faith for Christ? Would you stand for Christ? I asked it once already. I'm going to ask it some more. I got to be careful judging other folk talking about what they're doing. Are you really on that certain that you would compromise? Yeah, it sounds good. I know you got good religion. But you know what? I do a rewind on Jesus when he was talking. And Peter says, well, now, Lord, I hear what you're saying. But let me tell you about the rest of these suckers. I can understand why you said it about Judas. He looks kind of shaky anyway. I ain't really all that certain about James and John. But I tell you what, you don't have to worry about me. No matter what happens with the rest of them, I guarantee you that I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to be there through thick and thin. I'm going to be ready to fight to the end. Do I have a witness here? Oh, I'm trying to tell you, sometimes you think you're going to stand, and when standing times come, you're the first one to sit down. Sometimes you act like you're going to stay, but when staying times come, you're the first one to run away. Jesus said, I know you, and since I know you, I know who I am, and I know what you're going through. He says, I'm the first and the last. He says, I was dead and is alive forevermore. Well, that's good news right there. In other words, Jesus identifies with the saints. In other words, I know what you're going through, but I can identify with that. I know what you're going through. I can identify with your anguish and your concerns. He said, but fear not. Don't be afraid. Fear not. That's easier said than done, Lord. He said, well, unless you conquer that, you're not going to be able to walk the rest of the journey. Fear not. God has not given us a spirit of fear. That if I'm fearful, it really didn't come from the Lord. If I'm afraid, I'm leaning on the wrong power. If I'm afraid, I'm not trusting in the proper power source. What you talking about, Haynes? Jesus didn't lie to him. He told him the consequences of taking the right kind of stands. But he says, I think I ought to tell you something. Don't be fearful, because even though it appears that you are poor, you're really rich. Oh, help me, Holy Ghost. How you going to tell me I'm rich? Well, you see, it's like the lady was saying for Women's Day. Wealth has to do with more than just money. Wealth has more to do than just your bank account. Wealth is not really about your houses and your land. Wealth has to do with your relationship with a power greater than yourself. When I was raised up, we were raised up, and all of you were too. You might try to act all up in it now. But we were raised around poor people. In fact, most of us were raised around poor people. But you know what? The whole I couldn't explain it back then, but I can explain it now. That I was happier as a boy poor than a whole lot of folk who were supposed to be well off were. And I didn't understand until I got older that you really don't have to have a whole lot of stuff in order to be rich. I didn't have parents with a whole lot of stuff, but I wouldn't trade my mom and daddy in for nobody. I got whipped, I got chastised. In fact, they would have put them suckers in jail now for child abuse. But you know what? If I had it to do all over again, I'd rather have Felix and Marjorie. The Bible said those he loved, he chastised. They sure must have loved me. But you saw the alternative. My great aunt, it didn't have nan child. I told you we called her name. But name used to have to babysit white babies. And didn't understand it when she didn't have no children. And every Christmas, and every Thanksgiving, them grown white men and women was sending gifts to my name, my great aunt. And they said they didn't even want to speak to their mom and their dad. I didn't understand it. And then she said, well, name, what did you do to them? She said, I used to whoop them. I said, when I got through whooping them, I told them they tell their mom and dad I'm going to whoop them again. Because they were raised around folk didn't believe in chastisement. Wish I had a witness here. But when they got older, they recognized the one who really loved them. Come on here, somebody. Who was trying to chastise them when they were wrong. Tried to put them on the straight and the narrow. And they learned how to appreciate that. Well, I'm so glad I was raised around the folk I was raised around. We didn't have a lot of stuff, but one thing we had was a whole lot of love. You felt the love all around you. You felt like somebody wanted to take care of you. You felt like somebody was looking out for you. We didn't have a whole lot of money, but we had food to eat. Oh, help me, Holy Ghost. I ain't gonna lie to you. We didn't have a whole lot of sirloin steaks in my house, but we had some steak and we had some pork chop and we had some pork bone. Y'all talk too much. Y'all had to tell them folk how good pork They wouldn't have raised the price on it when I was a boy. You could get it for free. You could just go by. I wish I had a witness here. Take up the pork bone they left when they were slaughtering those pigs and those hogs and those beef. Well, you see, the Lord blessed us to make it with what we had. Yeah, I didn't have fine stuff all the time, but we used to make serve sandwiches. I don't know about that. We made man-made sandwiches. We always had something to eat. Yeah, we went by a loaf of bread every day, but Felix kept bringing a loaf of bread to the house. We always had something to eat. We always had a roof over our head. We always had shoes on our feet. Yeah, I know what it is that not to have, but to have, even though you don't have. He said, fear not, but though I understand what you're going through, you're really rich. And I think I ought to tell somebody, instead of you complaining about what you don't have, you ought to thank the Lord for all of his blessings. Instead of complaining about how difficult your childhood was, you ought to thank the Lord. Thank him for the mountains. Thank him for the valleys. Thank him for all that he brought you through. If you never had a problem, you wouldn't know that God could solve them. Somebody here know we made it, even though we were in hostile environments. He made a way out of no way. He was a shelter in the time of storm. He was bread when we were hungry, water when we were thirsty, wheel in the middle of the wheel. He was my hope and my help, and he's worthy to be praised. I hear him say, don't be afraid, fear not, for even though the devil's going through all of this with you and at you, you need to know who I am. I was dead, but now I'm alive. Come on here, somebody. Forevermore. In other words, the devil said you're dead, but Jesus said you're alive. The world said they're going to take your joy, but Jesus said this joy I have. The world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away. If you're here today, he said, fear not, don't be afraid, not because you won't have some difficult days. He said, it's not you may have, it's not you might have. He said, I can guarantee you, you're going to go through some, you're going to have some trials and some tribulations. You're going to go through some things that's going to cause you to be knocked down and pressed down and rubbed together. But don't you worry. He says, I've been through it all. I was dead, but I'm alive. And I'm not alive for a day, but I'm alive forevermore. Do I have anybody here who know you were dead, but he lifted you up? Do I have anybody here? You were dead, but he raised you up. He put running in your feet, and he put clapping in your hands. Do I have anybody here? You have given it up, and your friends have given you up, but the Lord, he stepped in right on time. He may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. Somebody here know what it is to be resurrected. Somebody here know what it is when the devil gave you up and counted you out, wasn't counting on you anymore to work against him, but then the Lord raised you up, made a way out of no way. The Lord raised you up, put running in your feet and clapping in your hand. The Lord raised you up and gave you a testimony and said you ought to tell it wherever I go. I wish I had somebody, but that ain't all he said. let him hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. And I think I want to tell you that the Spirit ain't just talking to Spirit. Yeah, that the Spirit is not the only one. When you stand for God, you will go through some stuff. But I came by to tell you, don't you worry, don't you fret, but just hold on to God's unchanging hand. He said, he that overcomes, I'm going to give you a crown of life. Oh, y'all didn't hear me. He said, I'm going to give you a crown of life. Well, how does Christ comfort these folk? This crown of life was in contrast to the crown of Smyrna. Smyrna, I told you, was a place that was in this cult of Rome. Smyrna, sometime around 1200 BC, had compromised their ability to serve one God and decided they're going to serve another. So they built a temple to Zeus, and they started worshiping Zeus. They liked that pretty good. So they built a temple to the goddess of Rome, and they started worshiping her. Then they built a temple to Tiberius, and then they didn't stop there, but they kept adding on temples to all of these fake gods. Well, they added these temples, but they weren't just located any kind of way, but they were located in Smyrna in the form of a circle, which looked like a crown. So they called it the crown of Smyrna, made up of temples that were really worshiping idol gods. And I hear them thinking that they were all that because they were, yes, powers that be. They were in control. They had power to punish the church at Smyrna. They had power to slander and to make suffer. But I hear him say, yes, God has a power against those who go against his will. I tell you right here, because you're a child of God, doesn't mean that you won't have some hard days, but because God gives us the freedom of choice. Yes, some people will make the wrong choices. You see it every day. These AR-15s killing innocent people. People killing their mamas and their daddies. People going to work killing their co-workers. People doing drive-by shootings and killing folk right here and right now in America. Don't have to call no city because it's happening all over. I wish I had a witness, but I think I ought to tell you that even though God is in control, he says I'm the first, but I'm also the last. Yes, that means God has the last word. God has the last say. Not only does he know the past, but he also knows the future. But I think I ought to tell you that because God is in control, it doesn't mean that everything that happens is in accordance with God's will. There are some people who go contrary to God's will. Yes, some people just totally ignore God and do what they want to do. I hear God saying there will be some people who will go against my will. I never told you that every day was going to be all right, but even though they go against my will, you can overcome. And if you overcome, you will to be caught up to meet him in the air. But he said, don't worry about the first death. That's not what you worry about. Don't worry about how Adam messed up the first time when he went against what God told him and ate the forbidden fruit. That's the first death. He said, but don't worry about the second death. He said, I'm the first and I'm the last. I was there in the beginning and I'll be there in the end. And there's some folk who go against my will. But let me tell you, there are consequences to my will. My will, yes, will stand because I have the last word. My will prevail because I'm in control. Yeah, my will be there because they can make jokes about it they want to. But one day, every soul has to stand before God's judgment day. Every soul got to stand before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and give an account of the deeds done in their bodies. I don't know what all this world has in store for you, but I do know that if you stand with him, he'll stand for you. If you stand with him, he'll make everything all right. Y'all act like y'all ain't convinced. Well, you can have some testimony. Let me just read this before I go to my feet, and I'll let y'all have it. He says, for which cause we think not, but though the outward man perish, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. For we, for our light afflictions, look how he put it. He said you just suffer, but you're just going to suffer for 10 days. That's the Bible saying it's going to be just a short time. Paul said for our light afflictions is but for a moment, working for us a far more exceeding in eternal weight of glory. Yes, while we look not at the things which are seen, but the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen, they are eternal. He said, I've got an eternal hope of glory. I got hope that lasts till eternity. You can't get it. You got to have a spiritual vision. You got to have a hope for eternity. For you see, on this side, you can't see it all. But on the other side, there's a hope of glory. On the other side, you got to know what eternity is. Ain't it all right? Ain't it all right? Is there anybody here who knows my Jesus? He said, don't be afraid and don't you worry. I'll be by your side. He didn't say until death, but he says unto death. In other words, when death comes, Jesus don't go running. When death comes, he's right there. His power is right there. He'll give you what you need in the middle of your circumstances. He will empower you to go farther and further. Is there anybody here believe in the power of God? Is there anybody here who said, I will not compromise? For God I live and for God I die. Come hell or high water, I'm going to stand with him. If nobody else stands with me, I'm going to stand with him because he's worthy. I said he's worthy to stand with. He's worthy to be appreciated. He's worthy to be praised. He's worthy to trust in. He's worthy to lean on. That's the final word. Whatever else you've been trusting in, give it up and start trusting in the Lord. I will trust in the Lord. Don't lean on it. Yes, the sun may shine they said we lost everything. But one thing, we're so thankful. We still got our life. We still can live. You can replace stuff, but we still able to get up in the morning. So we're going to say, thank you, Lord. Then I watched them a week later. They had neighbors coming from all over, helping them clean up the trash. They had bottles of water coming from all over the country, helping them to feed their hungry situation. They had help put smiles on their faces and said, look pretty bad. And we still have some difficult days to come, but it has to make you feel good on the inside. When folk you don't even know will come to your rescue, it got to make you feel good on the inside. When you get help from unusual places, and that's all I'm trying to say. The Lord will help you. But before you're looking for Him to help you, you ought to try to go and help somebody else. Before you ask Him to make somebody kind to you, you ought to try to be kind to somebody else. If you still got a roof over your head, you ought to take what God has blessed you with in order to be a blessing to somebody else. If you had some hard days and some terrible nights and He delivered you, you ought to take that deliverance and share it with somebody else. If He's made a way for you and now you got your way made, you ought to look for somebody who still need a way. You ought to help them find their way. Is there anybody here that the Lord made a way out of no way? He said it's more blessed to give than receive. He didn't tell us that we're going to make the world better by ourselves, but He said I'm going to help you to make the world better by using you to let your light shine in the midst of the darkness. Let your light shine in the midst of the turmoil. Let